بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum. It is Wednesday, the 15th of March 2022. And in our broadcasts, reflections on the Holy Quran, this is broadcast number 400. And these days we are discussing the meanings of the words of Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 108. And this is the 7th broadcast in that series. These broadcasts are brought to you by Laser, Lahore MBS School of Education in Religion, which is a department of the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement or Ahmadiyya Anjuman Ishaat-e-Islam. The Ahmadiyya movement was established by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who taught that although other people say that a prophet can come after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, this is incorrect, because the Holy Quran says that the Holy Prophet was Khatmun Nabiyyin, and the Holy Prophet explained its meaning by saying, Ana Khatmun Nabiyyin la Nabiyya ba'di. There is no prophet after me. So now no prophet can come, whether an old one or a new one. And this is why the Holy Prophet Muhammad explained to Muslims that now Mujaddideen or reformers will come when the Ummah needs guidance or reform. And they will carry out this work of reformation amongst the Ummah. And he also taught that, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad also taught that the Messiah and the Mahdi spoken of in the Hadith, they're not two separate personalities, but represent two aspects of a Mujaddid's work. And he claimed that he was the Mujaddid, that Mujaddid to whom these titles applied. And he pointed out that mainly problems arise because Muslims, when they discuss sources of their knowledge of religion, they put hadith at the top, sayings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, which weren't written down for some 200 years. And he explained that the correct order is we should take the Holy Quran first, and then Sunnah or the actions of the Holy Prophet, and then hadith or the sayings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And if we do that, then this will save us from confusion and making mistakes about our beliefs. He also taught that although other people say that some prophetic revelation is missing from the Holy Quran, such as Ayah Rajam, or some verses of the Holy Quran are abrogated, this is not correct. Nothing is missing from the Holy Quran, and no verse of the Holy Quran was, is, or ever shall be abrogated. And he said that jihad is the duty of every Muslim, but jihad as defined by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, who said, while returning from fighting, he said that Muslims are returning from the minor jihad to the major jihad, and then explained that the major jihad is a jihad against your own soul, against your own selves. And of course, he said that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said that if one reciter of the kalima says to another reciter of the kalima, you are not a Muslim, then it's the person making this statement who goes out of the fold of Islam. Meaning being that no Muslim should say to another Muslim, to another reciter of the kalima, you are not a Muslim. It is wrong and against the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As I said, we are looking at the words of chapter 2, verse 108. So let's have a look at that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أم تريدون أن تسألوا رسولكم كما سئل موسى من قبل ومن يتبدل الكفر بالإيمان فقد ضل سواء السبيل. And its English translation is, where are verse 108, here we are. Rather, you wish to question your messenger, as Moses was questioned before. And whoever adopts disbelief instead of faith, he indeed has lost the right direction of the way. And today we'll look at the word, the expression bil iman. So let me have a look at my notes. I was going to say, let us have a look at my notes, but you can't see my notes. Now, bil iman, this is an expression. Sorry. And it consists of two segments, the prefix bi and al-iman. B is a preposition, and al-iman is a noun which has the root hamza mim noon. And these three letters, 17 words, that's right, 17 words made from these three letters appear in the Holy Quran 879 times. For example, 537 times we have amana, and 202 times we have mu'min, and 45 times we have the noun iman, and 22 times we have the word mu'minat, and then we have 20 times we have the word amina, and 14 times the adjective amin, and 10 times we have aminin. And its meaning is, we know that it's to believe, but it also security, entrusting someone. You know, like if you're going somewhere and you give someone, I don't know, your Rolex, and you say, I'm entrusting you with this. So security, trust, belief, etc., they all are a part of its meaning. But what you have to remember is that al-amnu actually represents aman. Aman is translated as peace or contentment. That your soul, your inner self is content, is at peace. And it is said that, in fact, amnan, amanatun, and amanun, they are all roots. Sometimes we have aman. Sometimes it means security and peace. For example, if you've seen old Indian and Pakistani movies, and they're about, a messenger rushing into a king's court, and he's got bad news for the king. So he would rush in, and his first sentence will be, Jaan ki aman paun, to kuch aras karo. That right, and that means that on promise of security of my life, I will, make something known. And then you have amanat. Amanat is what is entrusted to someone. And we know that in the days of old, you didn't have banks and security boxes and all this palaver. So, if you were going somewhere and you were going to be away for weeks or something, and you had some valuable stuff you were leaving behind, then you would ask someone to look after that stuff. We'll go to him and say, oh, here is, I don't know, a kilo of gold I've got in my house. I'm entrusting that to you. This is my amanat, something that I'm entrusting to you. And we know that, for example, if we read the history of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, we find that because he was known as Al-Amin, that's the most trusted person, lots of people would request him to look after their valuables. And of course, when the Holy Prophet wanted to migrate to Medina, if he'd now gone and said to everyone, oh, here's what you entrusted to me, and I want to give it back to you, and then gone to the next person and then the next person and returned everything, people would have been very suspicious. Why is he returning everything that's been entrusted to him? So he asked Hazrat Ali to lie in his bed so that when enemy looks through the window, they'll see someone sleeping in the Holy Prophet's bed and they'll think it's him. And then in the morning, first, everything entrusted to him, take that to its rightful owner, return them, and then come to Medina. And we actually have a verse of the Holy Quran which says, وَتَخُونُوا أَمَانَاتِكُمْ, chapter 8, verse 27. And the things which are entrusted to you, do not deal with them dishonestly. And a literal meaning would be where, someone is going on a long journey and he's got 10,000 pounds and he comes to you and says, Zad or Bakr or whoever, can I leave 10,000 pounds with you? I'll pick it up on my return, and leaves. And when he comes back, you give him back 9,000 pounds and pocket 1,000 pounds. And you try and satisfy your own guilty conscience by saying, well, I looked after his 10,000 pounds, didn't I? I deserve something. Why should I do it for free? This was like my salary, my wages for doing it. Well, this half excuse may satisfy your conscience or yourself, but it's not really a very strong argument. But we also need to think about another thing, and that is this, that our contention, this is Muslims, we say that the guidance in the Holy Quran is for all people, for all time. Now, in the days of old, you didn't have banks. You didn't have security boxes. You may not even have had safes at the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is why you had to resort to handing your valuables to someone and saying, when I come back, I'll take it from you. But now we've got banks, we've got safes, we've got safety deposit boxes. So what relevance does this verse of the Holy Quran have to us, to our time, to our situation? Because remember, our claim is that the Holy Quran, its guidance, Its guidance is for the whole of humanity, for all time to come. That being the case, it must apply at this time. So let us consider this. There's another verse of the Holy Quran, chapter 33, verse 72. Inna aradnal amanata ala samawati wal ard. That this burden was presented to the heavens and the earth, but it said that they declined. So, as a group, what is it that's been entrusted to us, to all of us, to you and me, to Chinese and to Americans and to Canadians and to Venezuelans and to French and so on? And what is this warning that something is being entrusted to you? Deal with it honestly, not dishonestly. Khiyanat is the word used here. Or takhunu. Do not deal with them dishonestly. Well, see, God put in trust in humanity's hands everything that is around us. Water and air and atmosphere and so on. Now, as we were its guardians, it was up to us to make sure that all these things remained in the state in which they were handed to us. But has that been the case? I don't think so. Over the North Pole, we have a hole in the ozone layer, which now lets in harmful radiation from the sun down to the ground. And its purpose was, the purpose of the that sort of blanket around the earth was to protect us from harmful radiation from the sun. But this is not something that's happened just now or is recent. That this goes back. In 1950s, for example, during the winter especially, some days television and radio will announce that if you are very young or if you are an old person or if you have breathing difficulties, etc., don't go out today. That is what they called smog. Now, fog is a natural phenomenon. We know it happens in winter. But what is smog? Smog is a combination of fog and smoke. Because in those days, in the homes, to heat the home in the winter, people burned coal that produced a lot of smoke. The cheaper the coal you bought, the more smoke it produced, and it went up a chimney and into the atmosphere. Factories did exactly the same thing. They burned coal to run factories, and they had huge chimneys to expel smoke. Now, when it was clear, air would sort of carry that smoke and spread it all over the place. But when there were clouds, when it was cloudy, sometimes the smoke didn't drift. It just concentrated over some area. And the result was that there was so much pollution in the air that it was difficult for people to breathe. And so the Clean Air Act was brought in, prohibiting the burning of coal and so on that produces smoke. And gradually, over a period of time, the air over London recovered to a great degree. But we still have a situation where during rush hour, major roads around London, like the North Circular, there are so many cars on there, and they're producing so much smoke and they're polluting the atmosphere so much that, some years ago, a young boy with breathing problems, he collapsed and died. We're talking about a few years ago now. And that is the example of just one thing. What about water? There are some places in United Kingdom where water is so polluted with excrement and so on that if you went and you bathed in that water, you'd fall ill, maybe even die. Thames was so polluted that it could not sustain any living thing. All fish that used to be in it died. Any living thing in the Thames died because the water was poisonous. To fish, poisonous water is like that smog. If you got asthma and you go out in the smog, you're likely to choke to death. It was the same thing that was happening to the fish. And then they brought out an act which banned discharge into the waters of the Thames, polluting it. Then gradually over time, fish returned and other living things returned. So in this verse, I would suggest that God is saying to us that the whole of humanity was entrusted with these things. And human beings have not proven to be trustworthy keepers of what God has put in their hands. They've misused these things. They've polluted these things. It's like someone leaves a Rolex with you, and then he comes back 6 months later, and you give it back to him, and he looks at it, and it's got scratches and dents, and it doesn't work anymore. Oh, I'm very sorry, I dropped it, and all this kind of thing. This is what we're doing to the atmosphere, to water, etc. And my view is that yes, at the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, this was just applied to people leaving valuables in trust to other people. But in our age, it applies to pollution and global warming. And what it is saying is, those things which were entrusted to you, that is the environment, the air and the water, do not deal with them dishonestly, do not pollute them. And we have done so. We have done so. What I'm suggesting is, going back to what I said, at the beginning of this broadcast that to substantiate our claim that the guidance of the Holy Quran is for all people for all time, we need to reinterpret verses of the Holy Quran so that they are applicable to our situation, not just depend on the interpretations and meanings of the great scholars, religious scholars and commentators of the Holy Quran. I'm not saying that they were wrong. What I'm saying is that maybe if they were alive at our time, they would interpret these verses in the same way as I have done. With that, I take my leave of you with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep the whole of humanity safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.